The Philadelphia 76ers picked up a necessary victory in the 81st game of the season, keeping the window open for the 6th seed. But like everything with the Sixers team, it is never easy. And Joel Embiid led the charge by having some concerns of his own with that knee injury seeming to flare up. The biggest concern is obviously with Joel, is all this talk about standings, all these conversations about what each team will do, where the chips will fall, really doesn't matter if the big fella is not himself. Now, I cannot play the clip exactly because of copyright issues on here, but it was a strange play at the end of the first half where Embiid Euro stepped in the lane, missed the first shot, went up for a second, got the little tap in by the rim, and then immediately signaled that he needed to come out, called for a take foul on the other end, went right to the locker room. And in pure Joel Embiid fashion, he came jogging out the tunnel, ready to play in the second half, and ultimately finished the game for the Sixers team. Now, we do have this quote from Nick Nurse following the game saying that, quote, "The medical staff assessed Joel at halftime. No swelling, no damage, none of that stuff. They said he should be okay to try it, and he wanted to try in the second half, and he was okay." So overall, good news there. I'll say what was weird about me is when you watch the play, it isn't something that it's like, there's where the issue is, or there's where he got hurt. It looked like a fairly normal play, which honestly raises more of a red flag in my mind. I think the biggest question will be answered tomorrow when you find out if there is swelling, if there is an issue with anything. For now, everyone seems to be operating as if that is not going to be the case. But of course, the Sixers still have one more game to play on Sunday that I don't know what the chances of him playing are in that game. And of course, it is a must win. They will be playing the Brooklyn Nets, which obviously a bit of an easier matchup than a game like today against the Magic, but still not a team that you can fully take for granted. And to dive into the exact standings at this point following this game, we have the Magic, the Pacers, and the Sixers, each sitting with a 46-35 record with one game to play. So, of course, we've talked about the Sixers team scrapping and crawling and trying to get out of the 6th seed. The pathway still remains there, but they're going to need some help. So, to simplify it, with the Cavs taking down the Pacers tonight, the 76ers will finish 6th with a win and an Orlando loss or an Indiana win. The 76ers will finish 7th with a win, an Orlando win, and an Indiana win, as the Magic win the division and Pacers win the tiebreaker with Philly. So the biggest difference here being, I think, where a lot of the confusion and what doesn't make any sense to me from the NBA's mindset, but when you have a direct two-way tie between two teams, the head-to-head record is the first tiebreaker for seedings. However, if you bring 3 teams in the mix, then it is the divisional record. And to pull up the exact divisional record that you can see here, then the Magic on the year 9-7, the Pacers 11-6, and the Sixers just 7-8. So the Sixers, the lone team below 500 in this particular matchup. I think it's annoying that I don't think division records should really matter at all in this type of context, that I would much rather it be something with the head-to-head, or even you want to do conference to get more of a zoomed-out view, I would be cooler with that. But I don't really like using the divisions because this is really all it is used for in the NBA. Nobody even really knows. This isn't like the NFL where you're competing for the NFC East and you know that you're playing those teams twice a year. The NBA doesn't really lean into that except for situations like this. But to talk about the game as a whole, I did want to recognize that the Sixers did pick up the 125-113 win, and even throughout the injury issues, Joel Embiid with a very good game. Finished with 32 points, 13 rebounds, and 7 assists. Shot 4 of 7 from 3, which I do think is something to note. Since he's come back, that seems to be a focus in his game. He attempted 9 3-pointers against the Pistons in the game prior, and he's hit at least 2 3-pointers in each of the last 4 games since returning from injuries. So I do think that's something to note moving forward. I think that's a good thing, that I think he's a very capable shooter and a guy who we see how effective he is in the mid-range. It does provide the defense with a little different pressure, opens things up in a little different way. So just a bit of a storyline to note moving forward. A couple other highlights that I did want to note. Tyrese Maxey with 28 points, 3 assists, shot 5 of 10 from 3 and 10 of 19 from the field. What impressed me the most about Maxey in this game is it felt like he mastered the point of when he needs to take over, that he stepped up at a couple of various moments where the team desperately needed. He was that injection of life, that full force offense, and that was especially necessary due to the situation with Joel. Even with him returning to the floor in the second half, I will say from my eyes, he did not look to be the best version of Joel Embiid. And a lot of this is him playing himself back into shape. We've talked about that quite a bit, but it felt like there was a lot of decoy of him just hanging by the three-point arc, him kind of walking through the motions, and that is a concern moving forward. But all we can go out at this point in time is once again what we have heard from Nick Nurse, which is that there was no swelling, no damage, none of that stuff. I'm sure there will be a more, in-depth check on the knee moving forward. I don't love his chances of suiting up for Sunday, but the Sixers should take care of business without him. And to simplify the path, to put it in its most simplest here, that the Sixers' path to the 6th seed is that either Indiana loses to Atlanta or Orlando loses to Milwaukee. And what I do think is notable here is to pull these standings back up is that Milwaukee, this is an important game for them, that they hold the exact same record with the New York Knicks. They have the advantage from the tiebreaker standings there. So for the Bucks, that if they win, they hold that 2 seed. Now, they could very much be looking down the standings and maybe eyeing up that the same kind of dance that the Sixers are doing, that is there an advantage to dropping to the 3 seed? I doubt that's the case. I think they're going to want to hang in that 2 spot. But the bottom line is there's so many moving parts with all this. And honestly, the tiebreakers and just how the standings are shaking out feel more confusing than any other year I can remember. So I guess we are sitting here relying on Doc Rivers to pull one out again, to come up big for the franchise one last time after all the frustration, because we do need him to defeat the Orlando Magic. And the Magic, I will say, they're a solid team that I think they did impress me a little bit tonight. They're a team that I don't want to play in the playoffs. I think they're annoying. I think they're physical. And they're a team that, while I don't think they would give the Sixers any trouble in a 7-game series, it would be a team that beat you down. They remind me a little bit kind of cut from like the Raptors or the Heat mold, where they're physical, they bump into you, they hit you. They're not a particularly good shooting team. They do have weaknesses, absolutely. But I will give them a little bit of credit, as they're not a team after tonight that I'm itching to play. And a couple other points that I did want to make from these standings, or from the box score here. Number one, DeAnthony Melton played just 5 minutes in this game, which is a huge disappointment to me. That is a guy that I've talked about quite a bit that I do think should be important to this team. And flashback to a couple months ago, and he was the starting shooting guard for this team. Nick Nurse, after the game, said that this was not an injury thing. This was not an issue that led to him not getting an expanded opportunity. There's simply, he liked the way the look of how Kyle Lowry was playing, how Buddy Hield played, and that there really wasn't room for him on the floor. That's disappointing to me, because Melton is a guy I think could be valuable in this playoff run, and I do think the effort should be made to ramp him up to speed, and that's especially the case when you're throwing out 37 minutes in this game to Tobias Harris, 38 minutes in this game to Tobias Harris. I will note a couple other highlights. Kelly Oubre in his 30 minutes of play with 21 points. He had 9 rebounds. Thought he played very well overall. Had a couple key defensive plays there. Paul Reed did his job coming off the bench, kept the level high, finished with just 6 points, only 3 rebounds. Didn't shine in the stat sheet, but overall was played very well. So pretty impressed with things across the board there. And everything will now come down to what happens Sunday. And what I think is especially interesting about this particular matchup is the NBA kind of staggered the schedule here. That every single team in the league played tonight. No teams will play tomorrow, and then every single team will play on Sunday. And for these 3 games that matter, to pull them up once again, we have Indiana against Atlanta, Orlando against Milwaukee, and of course the Sixers versus the Nets. All those games tipping off at 1 o'clock. So we will know at around the same ending time for each of these games how the full seedings are shaking out. And to dive into a little bit more of the deeper view of it, that there are a couple other chances. That the 6 or 7 seed looking the most likely here, but the 5th seed there is a slight chance that if both Orlando and Indiana lose, and of course the Sixers take care of business, they would climb up to that 5 seed. The 6th seed, once again, that they need either Orlando to lose and then Indiana and the Sixers to win, or Indiana to lose and Orlando and Philly to win. And then the 7th seed would be, of course, if Orlando and Indiana win. So it's kind of become a little bit clearer here that I think a lot of this, there was a whole lot of hypotheticals. We more or less have the situation at this point, but it's still not a great situation or position to be in because the Sixers do not control their own destiny. But once again, I do think the larger message here is that Joel Embiid, man, please be okay. And please do not be taking charges in game 81 of the regular season. That this was a matchup where I would have pulled the plug on keeping him on the floor much earlier than Nick Nurse did. I get the mindset between playing him into shape, and the hope is that it was just a scare. He's completely fine. You kind of got to operate like that. But this was a chippy game. This was a physical game. This was a game where he hit the deck far more times than I was comfortable with, and I would have much rather save him from himself in a way that I think the Sixers continue to fall short in that area. We will see what happens from here. Hopefully no negative updates when it comes to Joel. Hopefully that they can take care of business when it comes to Sunday. But we'll see what all happens moving forward. Let me know what you guys think, what your mindset on that game is, what your opinion of Joel is moving forward, if you think he plays Sunday, if you think this is an issue, and what your ultimate prediction for what the seeding ends up. Appreciate each and every one of you for tuning into this video, and we'll talk to you next time right here in Sixers Digest. Peace.